Our guest in the studio is one of the most prominent of advertisers in South Africa, Reg Lascaris, now chairman of one of the most famous of advertising agencies in South Africa, Hunt Lascaris. And Reg, it's great to have you in the studio. Are you keeping busy as chairman of Hunt Lascaris these days?
Yes, I am keeping busy. Well, I kind of split my time between Joburg and Cape Town, and when I'm here, I'm busy. But I take time off now as well.
I suppose in the industry such as yours, you're always being asked for your input, but let's go to the beginning. When you and John Hunt started Hunt Lascaris, famously, you had the most humble of humble beginnings. And I think it's a wonderful lesson for anybody starting their own business, wanting to be entrepreneurs, to realize that something as lofty as Hunt Lascaris had such humble beginnings. The boot of a car.
Correct. Well, in fact, we had no money. We went to the banks to try and raise some money to start the company, and of course, we had nothing to back it up with. So eventually we found a friend and another friend and another friend and another friend, still no money. And eventually a client of mine who I was working with at the time said, listen, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a little bit of money and I'll back you guys. So he said, thank you very much. It wasn't a lot of money at all. He then lent us an office in his business center, and we started there. But of course we had no money for cars. We forgot about cars, and you've got to get around in this business. So eventually we had to go and raise some more money, and we bought 2 seriously second-hand cars. And mine was a bright yellow Corolla station wagon. And that really was our office, because we couldn't invite people into the office we were in because there was no room. So we came up with a new philosophy. You see, sometimes solutions are actually quite simple. We said, you don't come to us, we come to you. This way we save you money, and there's no fancy offices. And people bought that, funny enough. And we used to drive around in my bright yellow Corolla station wagon and visit clients. And we had a lot of mishaps along the way. The one day we were going to present to a big client. We were running late, as we always do in this business. I went downstairs and I started the car, and I said to John, as soon as you got the layouts, because it was layouts in those days, come, we'll stick them in the back of the car, the boot of the car, and off we go. So he put it in the back, I put my foot in the accelerator, off we went. Of course, he hadn't shut the door properly at the back. So all the ads fell out the back and got run over by a truck. So we stopped the car, got out the car, picked up these layouts, tried to dust the tire marks off. Eventually got to the client and presented them. We had to explain what had happened. And funny enough, they saw the humor in the whole thing. They liked what we had, and they gave us our first piece of business. So we literally started from the boot of an old Toyota Corolla.
It's startling to think that an agency such as yours that really put South Africa on the worldwide map when it came to advertising agencies had such humble beginnings. That's nothing to be embarrassed about either. Did you ever look at each other and give each other wry smiles at how much more humble can we get? This yellow station wagon with the kit falling out the back.
Well, the funny thing was, before we actually started, a year before, we sat out and had a drink and had a couple of beers and another beer and another beer. And we said, if we started our own company, we need a kind of a mantra. We need a North Star. We need to write something down. We need a meaning. And we sat down, we wrote that we wanted to be the first world-class agency out of Africa. And we laughed. And we laughed. And then we had another beer and we wrote down, because life's too short to be mediocre. Simple as that. Today that's still on every single wall. Because the thing about having a big dream, and that was a seriously big dream, is you'll never actually get there.
Yes.
If you have a small dream, you'll get there, then what next? So we wrote down this huge dream, had a hell of a good laugh about it. The next day, when we got together again, we looked at this thing and said, you know what, let's keep it. Let's make that our kind of North Star, our mantra, whatever. And it's funny because we had that on the wall and we were driving seriously second-hand cars going to clients. But the funny thing is, if you put something in your head and you really believe in it, I promise you it'll happen.
You were knocking on so many doors, making so many calls. People were turning you away. People didn't believe in you.
Yeah.
You believed in each other. You believed in yourselves, quite clearly. And there was a very strong self-belief, I would imagine, that was going on. At what point did you start to see things changing?
Well, interestingly enough, we started off, there were 3 of us, 3 partners. It was called Hunt Lascaris and Metcalf. Hell of a nice guy. Who eventually, because the first 6 months we worked for nothing. We'd saved a bit of money, or we were rating bonds, and we knew we couldn't pay ourselves a salary. Because the money that we'd borrowed, we used for petrol, for equipment and so on.
Yeah.
So, but we budgeted for that, and this friend of ours that started with us thought we'd make it quicker. And eventually he needed money. He was desperate for money. We were still scraping through. And after 6 months, he said, look, I've got to have something, otherwise I'm going to leave. So we managed to scrape a bit of money to pay him. And then after 8 months, we started getting some income in. But again, it wasn't enough to keep him going. So he bailed in the end, which was very sad because he's a very talented guy. He was our strategic planner. Mm-hmm. And we thought, oh, that's the end of it. This thing is going to break up. We're all going to collapse. But all of a sudden, the money started coming in and business started coming in. And funnily enough, at the end of the first year, we made a profit, believe it or not. Okay, we only paid ourselves tiny salaries, but we made a profit. And that was so important because we felt more confident. Gee, we made a profit. And the guy who lent us the money, who's a very good friend of ours now, kept us tight. Because you need someone to kind of guide you, because you're in the thick of things. And he's saying, no, we are not, you mustn't pay yourselves more. Get to the end of the year, have some money in the bank, and then reassess things, which is what we did.